The more I think about this, the more I realize that we are currently living our lives so out of balance that it's not even funny. And I'm not even talking about out of balance from the standpoint of work slash life balance, or talking about how we're not getting enough sleep, or talking about how our diets are not balanced. We definitely, especially in the United States, are far from eating a balanced diet. But what I'm speaking of is the balance between identifying problems and working towards solutions. You see, we've got the part of identifying problems down to a science. Anyone you meet is very adept at telling you what's wrong with the world, and that's me included. But very few of us have the patience, the mental flexibility, the ingenuity to actually cook up a solution to the ills that are going on in this world. Oftentimes, we spend a inordinate amount of time thinking about what's wrong, but the solutions tend to extend no further than to either pray about it or go out and vote. Now, when it comes to prayer, I don't want to speak down on any kind of religious practice. I don't want to speak down to any religious person. But what I do want to say is that often this God, this Allah, this universe that we pray to is waiting on us to make a move. I believe that the force that animates all the objects in this world, the force that created this world, works through us, through our minds. But after the thoughts go through our minds, we have to then put that into action. We can't just sit here and speak on problems forever and wait on some divine force to magically rearrange things for us while we sit and do nothing. After we pray, the next solution that people come up with a lot of times is to go out and vote. And with this being election season, I know in Virginia, and forgive me if I say this wrong because I'm not a political type of guy, but we've got a gubernatorial race, if I said that right. And often we complain about low wages. We complain about our jobs potentially being taken away by technology. We, we complain about high grocery prices, which are all valid concerns. But the course of action that we all can agree on requires us to wait 2 to 4 years to vote someone else in who we believe is qualified to handle our problems. And again, I'm not saying any of this to speak down to anyone. I'm not saying any of this to make anyone feel bad. But what I want to point out, the main purpose of this video is to maybe suggest to anyone who's open to hear what I have to say. I want to say that maybe we should balance out the energy and the time and attention that we spend on identifying problems, and we could devote some of that mental capacity, some of that time, some of that attention into brainstorming solutions. I am a military veteran, and I'm not saying that for any kind of applause. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but I'm saying that to reveal a practice that we did in the military, which was regardless of what we did, regardless of how successful or how unsuccessful we deemed a certain operation, we always sat down and brainstormed 3 things that went well, 3 things that went bad, And we came up with 3 suggestions for how we could do things differently, regardless of the outcome the next time. In the general society, it would be beneficial for us all to adopt that kind of practice. Sure, all of us could come up with a litany of things that we could complain about, but we're not powerless to sit in these situations without coming up with some kind of solution. In fact, we should think like entrepreneurs and business owners to the point where we seek out failure. Because when you seek out failure, you're gathering data. Sure, your situation may appear a certain way, and you may try a method or take a course of action to fix it. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're doomed to live out this fate forever. It only means that you've got data that shows you what works and what doesn't. Or rather, I should say, you've got data that shows you what doesn't work, which eventually, theoretically, should lead you to the place of finding out what does work. We don't take enough time to really put ourselves in those positions. And that's a failure on our part, I guess. I say it's a failure on our part because we have allowed ourselves to be conditioned to not rock the boat, to not question authority. And I'm not saying to go out here and be disrespectful. I'm not saying to be disobedient in situations where you need to take guidance from somebody. But I am saying it's okay to quietly question why things are the way they are in a respectful manner. For me, as a personal story, I've always been deemed as a person who maybe asks one or two too many questions. I've always been a person who has been told to let things go. I've always been a person who has always been told, that is, that I'm always looking for a problem or an issue. And it's not that I'm looking for a problem or an issue just to be a problem or an issue, just as a sport. When I see problems, I see things or opportunities to fix things. So when I see a problem, I see it as an opportunity to fix it. For instance, when there's a conflict amongst people, whether it be friends, family, significant others in relationships, or whatever, I've never been a person who can sit in the room with other people while an elephant is in the room at the same time. To me, there's too many variables that could spook the elephant, so to speak. You know, the elephant might begin to trample on people's feet. The elephant might destroy your furniture. The elephant may start to scream, or whatever you call that noise that an elephant makes. But either way, an elephant in the room is uncomfortable for everybody. And until you face the situation, it's going to be uncomfortable regardless. So my mind state is to try and fix things. And in a lot of cases, in order to fix things, you may have to tear things up so that they can be built up all over again. It's a sacred principle, so to speak. In order for you to treat an illness, you have to get to the source on a molecular level, on a microscopic level, to find out what is causing the illness. But we are trained to place band-aids and to only look at the surface and not what's going on underneath. We as a human race are just out of balance in that way. And if you get anything out of this video, I just want to encourage people to not necessarily be a problem maker, but I want you to at least take a dedicated amount of time to dedicate to solving problems as opposed to only relegating yourself to complaining. Because we know that we as a collective are more powerful than we really want to give ourselves credit for. There are situations that we suffer in silence during when we could actually affect some kind of change. And that in itself needs to change. Now, in the effort to not ramble on this video, I just want to close it up here. You're more powerful than you know, and problems are only opportunities for you to make a difference. So stop viewing these problems as an opportunity for you to complain and wallow in your sorrow, and start taking some of that energy, at least half of it, so you can bring things back into balance. Take half of that energy and use it towards finding a solution. If you made it this far in the video, I really appreciate you. If it resonated with you, leave me a comment, drop me a like, and of course, subscribe to the channel if you like more content like this. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I'll catch you in the next video.